In our previous lecture, we explored sociocultural theories of aging, examining how social roles, institutional structures, and cultural expectations shape later life. Here, we move from that theory to lived experience. Aging does not occur in isolation. It unfolds within networks of complex and evolving relationships. This includes families, communities, neighborhoods, faith groups, and cultural systems. These social environments provide meaning, identity, emotional support, and practical resources to an older person. In fact, one of the most powerful findings in aging research is this: social relationships can have significant biological and medical impacts on older adults. Because of this, in this lecture, we'll examine the health impact of social relationships, the distinction between loneliness and social isolation, the role of family and caregiving, community and social networks, cultural values and expectations, and structural inequalities and policy implications.
You can have it. I swear, I'll spend it in you. Point to it. You can have it.
Let's begin with a landmark finding in public health research. A large meta-analysis conducted by Holt-Lundstad and colleagues examined the relationship between social relationships and mortality. Their findings were striking. Individuals with strong social relationships had a significantly reduced risk of mortality compared to those with weaker relationships. The magnitude of this effect was comparable to well-known health risks, such as smoking and obesity. In other words, social relationships are as important to health as many medical risk factors.
You can have it. I swear.
There are several pathways through which relationships influence health. First, there are behavioral pathways. People embedded in supportive networks are more likely to engage in healthy behaviors, attend medical appointments, and adhere to treatment regimens. Second, there are psychological pathways. Social support buffers stress, and emotional reassurance reduces anxiety and depressive symptoms. And finally, there are physiological pathways. Chronic loneliness is associated with increased inflammation, elevated cortisol levels, and cardiovascular strain. These mechanisms reinforce a theme we have emphasized throughout the course. Aging outcomes emerge from the interaction between biological and social systems.
You can have it. I swear.
It is important to distinguish between two related but distinct concepts: loneliness and social isolation. Social isolation refers to the objective lack of social context or network size. Loneliness, in contrast, refers to the subjective feeling of being alone or disconnected, regardless of the size of one's network. An older adult may live alone but not feel lonely. Another may live with others but feel profoundly isolated. Both social isolation and loneliness are associated with increased mortality risk, depression, cognitive decline, and increased healthcare utilization. For healthcare administrators, this distinction is important when designing and managing a healthcare setting with older clientele. Screening tools and interventions must address both objective network size and subjective emotional experience, as either or both can contribute to the health and well-being of an older person.
You can have it. I swear.
Family remains one of the most significant sources of support in later life. Family members often provide emotional support, financial assistance, transportation, assistance with daily activities, and informal long-term care. In fact, family caregivers constitute the backbone of long-term care systems in the US and globally. Family caregiving is often gendered in that women disproportionately provide care, unpaid, and associated with physical, emotional, and financial strain. Caregiver burden can lead to increased stress, depression, and economic instability. At the same time, caregiving can also provide meaning, strengthen relationships, and a sense of reciprocity to the caregiver. This duality is important. Caregiving is neither purely burdensome nor purely fulfilling. It is complex and context dependent. It should be noted that caregiving, particularly the challenges surrounding caregiving, can expose major policy gaps. Many healthcare systems rely heavily on unpaid family labor without providing adequate support. Policy discussions to support family caregivers are increasingly emphasizing paid family leave, caregiver tax credits, enhancing and expanding respite services, and better integrating caregivers into care planning. For MHA professionals, recognizing the invisible labor of caregivers is critical to system design. It is also important to recognize that support is not one directional. Older adults can provide childcare, offer financial assistance, serve as cultural transmitters, and volunteer within communities. The ageist view of older adults is that they are dependent, but in many regards, we can be very dependent on the contributions of our elders. To this end, multi-generational households are becoming increasingly common in some communities, and they reflect economic and cultural factors that shape aging experiences. This reciprocity challenges narratives that frame older adults solely as dependents. Beyond family, broader community networks play a powerful role in shaping aging outcomes. Social integration may include things like religious participation, volunteerism, senior centers, neighborhood engagement, and informal friendship networks. Communities also provide structural support, such as accessible transportation, safe housing, walkable neighborhoods, and age-friendly public spaces. The concept of social capital, trust, reciprocity, and collective engagement, is associated with better health outcomes at the neighborhood level. Older adults residing in communities with higher trust and engagement tend to fare better. We cannot discuss engagement without also talking about disengagement, and more specifically, the risk factors associated with disconnection. Certain life transitions increase risk for social isolation, including entering into widowhood, retirement, geographic relocation, and the onset of a chronic illness. Retirement in particular can represent both liberation and loss of social identity, daily routine, and workplace networks. This connects back to sociocultural theories discussed in the previous lecture. Whether retirement leads to disengagement, renewed activity, or continuity depends heavily on resources and opportunity. Regardless, we must be mindful of the impacts of these transitions, as they may lead to disengagement, which can, in turn, lead to poor health outcomes. Culture shapes how aging is understood, valued, and supported. In some cultures, norms of filial piety emphasize strong expectations of family-based elder care. In more individualistic societies, institutional care may be more common. Cultural values influence perceptions of independence, expectations of family responsibility, attitudes towards nursing home, and views of aging itself. Cultural identity also provides meaning in later life through rituals, language, faith traditions, and community gatherings. Understanding cultural context better prepares us to provide culturally sensitive care, a major topic in a later module. To use a sports metaphor, aging does not occur on a level playing field. Race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, and migration history all shape access to things like stable employment, healthcare, retirement savings, and social networks. Those in more powerful and more privileged positions, socially, tend to have better access to these and thus will be better off. This is important, as cumulative disadvantage across the life course affects later life social support. For example, residential segregation may limit community resources. Economic precarity may reduce retirement security, and structural racism may increase caregiver strain. These realities remind us that family and community support systems are shaped by larger social structures. The social networks older adults have in later life are not random. They are the result of decades of educational opportunities, employment trajectories, marital histories, geographic mobility, and cultural affiliations. Again, this reinforces the life course perspective. Social environments accumulate over time. Thus, interventions to reduce isolation or support caregivers must be attentive not just to present circumstances, but to structural histories. For healthcare systems and administrators, this lecture carries several implications. 1. Social relationships are health interventions. 2. Screening for loneliness and isolation should be integrated into care. 3. Caregiver support must be treated as a public health priority. 4. Community-based aging models deserve investment. And 5. Cultural humility is essential in service design. Healthcare systems that focus exclusively on medical treatment while ignoring social context will miss critical determinants of well-being. To summarize, family, community, and culture are not peripheral to the aging experience, but are major drivers and influences. Social relationships impact mortality, cognitive health, emotional well-being, and quality of life. And caregiving systems reveal both strengths and structural gaps. Cultural norms can shape expectations and experiences. And finally, inequalities accumulate across the life course. In our next lecture, we will turn more specifically to emotional development and mental health in older adults, exploring how social environments intersect with emotional regulation and psychological well-being. As you reflect on today's material, consider this question. How might healthcare systems better integrate social relationships and cultural context into care for older adults? This concludes the second lecture for Module 4. If you have any questions about the material covered in this lecture, please contact your instructor for this course. Thanks for watching.
Only through it. You can have it. That's where.